Good evening from the Zed Farmer. I had to go live before we end 2021. I think it's very, very important for us to look back at the year and just say, thank God. Good morning, everyone. Oh, good evening, sorry, everyone. My eyes are a bit swollen because my grandmother's death has really affected me. And I thought I should talk to you before the end of 2021. You shouldn't be suffering because I have a funeral going on. So good evening, everyone, from my house. Just taking a break. Going back to the funeral house soon. As you can see, I haven't even combed my hair. Today has been a very hard day in terms of just being there, and also still I had to farm today, so I'm very tired, trying to be there for my mom, and then also trying to be there for the farms, because at the moment we are very busy. All three farms are in production. So before I start, I will say good evening to a few of my regular followers. Benedict, I'm not consulting on the farm. Someone has written here, thought you said no consulting till after burial. Yes, I'm not consulting on the farm, but I am here. So it's an instruction that I have to talk to you before the end of 2021. Remember that every live video that I do it because I have been instructed by God. Don't ever think that my live videos are just because I've thought of it. No. God will instruct me and then I'll come live. And sometimes you don't even get warning. I just do it. So I am not consulting on the farm, but I am here. So let's look back at 2021. Let us look at how far you have come. When I look at 2021, the first 3 months started off very rocky for me because I was in between fields, not really harvesting. Then I had COVID. That was the time that COVID really hit. Same thing every year. It hit. So COVID came, it left. We started planting and we did 18 hectares of onion. Now I have come on live because I want to show you how farming should go for you. It should be a profitable business. It should not be, it shouldn't be a hobby. You need to go back and see where your livestock or your crop has taken you. So 2021 started off quite rocky, but my suppliers did help me a lot get back on my feet. One thing I learned from the first 3 months was that if you're not focused, if things are not okay with you, what am I saying? If you don't have peace, you're fighting with someone, or things are not okay at home, what happens is that even your work will suffer. And that's how I felt during the time, because remember, that's the time that I was leaving my ex-husband. So things were not okay for me because I wasn't really concentrating. But then when I left, and I came back on the farms and decided that I wouldn't hurt so much. I would put my all into it. I decided that I would just work. And 2021 was more about based on results. So that was February. We went into, in fact, by February, I had already planted the 18 hectares of onion. So, the 18 hectares of onion was planted, and, 3-4 months later, we started harvesting. Now, onion was a learning crop for me. It wasn't a crop that I had done before. A lot of mistakes made. So one thing you must realize is that when you're starting something new, you are going to make mistakes. And when you make the mistake, you need to learn the lesson, not so much the loss. So here are some of my mistakes I made with onion. The first thing is that I didn't really land prep properly. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that I did the physical land prep properly, but I didn't do the spiritual land prep, and I didn't do the herbicide land prep. What do I mean by spiritual land prep? You know, whenever you are starting something, it's very, very, very important to always consult the Spirit. Consult the Holy Spirit about what you want to do. You know, the Word of God says that if you diligently seek me, you will find me. You need to always make sure that you consult the Spirit before you plant, before you delve into any business, or even before you start business with someone. Because sometimes the person who you're in business with, or what you want to do, or the crop that you want to do, the livestock that you want to do, is not God's plan for you. So don't do things because someone else is doing it. Do it because God has told you to. Because if you do it because God has told you to, you not only create wealth for yourself, you'll create wealth for so many other people. So I consulted the Spirit, and God told me, go ahead and plant. So I planted. And as I said, the herbicide land prep was not done properly. I didn't realize that I had nutgrass in the fields. So because I had nutgrass in the fields, I didn't herbicide the field before I planted. So what happened was I lost about maybe a quarter or maybe half of the fields because I did not herbicide it. And the nutgrass was taking over the onion. So the onion didn't germinate properly. So there's lesson number one, was that I should prepare properly. I should do a proper herbicide land prep before I plant. So there's lesson number one. So the onion germinated, and sorry, there's someone calling me. And the onion germinated, and after the onion germinated, I got a fertilizer program from my agronomist. Sorry guys, let me just answer a question before I continue. It says, why don't you look happy? I've just lost my grandma. She actually died 2-3 days ago. I'm even confused, sorry. The day before yesterday, I haven't slept also. And she died, and it was quite an emotional thing for me. I was very close to my grandma. She is the one that encouraged me to commercially farm. So that is why that's why my eyes are swollen. I've been crying a lot today because I went to my mom's house and I found that she wasn't there. So that is why I'm also emotional, just like you. I'm just a human being, so I also cry sometimes, but I don't stay in that space for too long. So I'm talking about the onion. So I planted the onion and I got a program from another agronomist, which was a lot cheaper than just the normal program. And once I got the program, we put the fertilizer accordingly. But one thing I learned with fertilizer was that we didn't concentrate too much fertilizer. And because we didn't concentrate it, we didn't broadcast it the proper way, there was a lot of uneven growth in the onion. There were some big ones, there were some small ones, and there were some medium ones. Then the next thing was that after we put in the fertilizers, the watering, the irrigation had to be done day and night, because now the rain had finished and now we're going to dry season, and I'm trying to balance onion and tomato, and I'm trying to balance it on one farm. It was absolutely a nightmare, but I learned something about the law of intention. You know, when you want to do something and you want to do it and you do it well and you work hard towards it, Just the intent and the desire to want to do that will actually cause you to propel such a force of energy that God will make sure that it happens. So I did the tomato. I was doing the onion side by side. We were spending 1,000 kwacha per day on electricity. I'm not lying. It was crazy. It took being strong, sacrificing. Anyway, fast forward later, 4 months, we start harvesting onion and tomato. And once we started harvesting onion and tomato, I decided that Tuzini 3 needs to now get running. We had built a worker's house. We had sunk one borehole, but it wasn't enough because my goal and my vision was quite big. And one thing I learned, one lesson I learned from Tuzini 2 is that you can only start crop farming when you have good irrigation. Why I'm saying that is because when you start crop farming, it's very important to have adequate water. The minute you don't have adequate water, what happens is that your crops completely fail because there's no pressure going in the drip lines to the tomato. At the same time, you're using a lot of diesel. So for example, for us, we use a genset. Sometimes the solar is annoying. Now, what is the difference between genset and solar? Solar works for some people. It also works for me on one farm. I have solar panels. But on that other farm, I decided to go genset because I needed that pressure from the boreholes. Sometimes when you have solar, and we have quite big boreholes, they're sunk deeply, they're big pumps, you find that the cloud cover would just cover the solar cuts, and then the irrigation is not correct, and I don't have patience for that. So in the beginning, I just decided that we'll go with a big genset. So we got the 50 kVA genset from Tuzini 1, and we started. So we sunk 2 boreholes, so we have 3 boreholes in total. The worker's house was already built by the time I was going there. I built it, but I built it during the December time. And once we started the pipes, the pipe work, the drip lines, the land prep, the manures, the blah, blah, I decided that we go with a seed variety which did very well during the winter time, which is called Star 9037 by Stark Airs. So we planted, and we planted about 40,000 plants. Now, the way the land is on Tuzini 3 is that it is a bit of a dumble. Now, here's another lesson I learned. And this was in the month of June, July. The land is on a slope. It's like this. So because the land is on a slope, down there, you find that water just comes up automatically. And I didn't know that. I thought it only happened in the rain season. So what happened was, now I just need to address something. Sorry, people keep cutting me short. They're saying that please take a break from social media. I need to give you my 2021 lessons for you to learn, because tomorrow is 2022 and I have a different strategy altogether. So what I'm saying is that 2021, we're finishing 2021. And because we're finishing 2021, I have an instruction from God to talk to you about the lessons learned so that in 2022, we don't make the same lessons. Mundia, munguguta, whatever it is, attention are so negative. If you don't want to be here, please just leave. You're disturbing us and we're disturbing everyone else. I'm not an attention seeker. Nobody has called you to this live video. So please, I'm asking you to leave nicely and let's keep going. So the land was like this. So because the land was on a slope, what happens is that we planted on this side where the land was a little bit okay, and then down the land was, it was nice and green. But then when we plowed it and we planted, what happened was that the plants down there started getting rotten from too much water. The water would just come up and it would just take up everything. and everything now started rotting. So I didn't do my land study correct. And I lost that field, unfortunately. A field which was about 20,000, I lost it. So there's another lesson that I learned. That if you're going to plant, make sure that you plant correctly. Make sure that you do proper land studies before you go in and plant. Ask the people around your area to say, how is this land? So that was the next lesson I learned. Then I learned lessons about numbers. I have always talked about numbers. For those of you joining me, this is my 2021 message to you. Today is the last day of the year. I am now going on a fast from the 1st until the 21st, and that's when I'll be back. So I'm not seeking attention. I am not asking you to be here. This is always to learn. After today, I will not post. I will be off social media until the 21st. So, what I'm saying is that there are a few lessons learned for those people joining me in farming, especially in crop farming. Another lesson I learned in August was that the market trend was very, very key to me. With tomato and onion, both crops, I found that the price would go up and then it would go down and then it would go up and it would go down. And, you know, the 250 price that everybody rushes for only lasted for 1 week. 2 weeks, then we're back to the same thing. So then what happened was 250, then it goes back to 130. Then it goes back to 250, then it goes back to 130. So we decided as Tuzini Farms that we need to start playing around with numbers. So that if we play around with numbers, what happens is that even if the price goes down to 100, to 70, to 50, what happens is that we're still maintaining, we are still on the market, and we're still making a profit. So I started learning about lowering cost of production. And cost of production comes through so many things. The first thing I learned was to go a little bit more on the organic side rather than using the synthetic fertilizers all the time. That was one thing I learned. The second thing was that I learned with lowering cost of production is to irrigate at the right time. If you irrigate at night, it doesn't really benefit the plants. But if you irrigate when it's hot and the plants really need water, it benefits it more because the plants take up nutrients during the hot times. That's when the nutrients are that's when the plants are active the most. So that's something that I learned about lowering the cost of production. Another thing I learned about lowering the cost of production was a good land prep. And after a good land prep, you spray the correct things when you plant so that you don't have pest problems in the future. So that was something that I learned also. Another thing I learned with tomato was that you need to work on yield. What am I talking about yield? I started looking at the boxes of tomato coming out of the field. You plant a 20,000 field and you're only getting 200 boxes. Why? So I started learning from other farmers. I used to go to a man called Mr. Mende, who is a good teacher of mine, Matthew, he's my age. And he started telling me about production of flowers. The more flowers you produce, the more boxes you have, the more fruit you have. So I started concentrating more. Instead of looking at the plant as a whole, you start looking at the flowers. So once we passed that stage, we started looking at the fruits, the quality of fruit. What makes a good fruit? And this goes for all crops. I think quality just speaks for itself. So we started looking at fatty acids, hormones. We started looking at proteins for the plants to create calcium, a lot of calcium applications. And we started putting calcium, in the very beginning, a lot earlier than when we were putting it before. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned in 2021. Another lesson I've learned now away from the farming is that when you're successful, you will have a lot of enemies. I don't consider myself successful where I want to be because I don't own a plane yet. When I own a plane and I have businesses all over Africa like Dangote, then I'll consider myself as successful. I'm still on my way. One thing I learned is that our society here in Zambia is very negative. And the minute someone is going through something, people will just bash you. One thing I learned is never, never, never to stop your purpose in life. What is my purpose in life? My purpose is to build farmers like yourselves so that when I go and when I die, I'll leave a legacy behind of people that I've built. Because when I build people, what happens is that they start to build something else. Another thing I learned about human resource was that now I'm talking about labor in farms. I learned something about workers. Workers, there are two types. The first type of worker will be somebody who will carry out your vision and is committed to you. The second type of worker is one who just wants to pay their pocket and get moving. You need to be careful who you push forward. I try to push so many of my workers forward. When I say forward, I mean promoting them, but you can't promote everyone. There are some people who just want to stay at the same level, and there are others that want to go forward. So I identified people in my business. Oh, the lights have gone. Uh-oh. This is not good. Guys, I have to go. My lights have gone. I don't even know what is happening. Where is everyone? I don't know. So from me, I have to cut the video. Let me go and see what's going on, and I will come back. Just give me 5 minutes. Let me see, and then I'll get back to you. Bye.